My beloved, do you realize that the hand of God is moving in ways you cannot see? Often when life feels uncertain, when things appear scattered and unsettled, we forget that nothing is wasted in God's divine plan. The disappointments, the delays, the closed doors, and even the tears you've shed, they are not accidents. They are instruments in the hand of the Almighty. God is rearranging your life, not to harm you, but to position you for a blessing greater than you've imagined. You see, when the pieces of your life feel like they are falling apart, God is actually fitting them together for something marvelous. He is the master conductor, orchestrating every note of your story so that it will ultimately play the melody of victory. Today, I want to share with you 7 key truths to help you recognize and trust the divine rearrangement God is doing in your life. When God begins to remove things from your life, it can feel like loss, it can feel like rejection, and it can even feel like punishment. But the truth is, when the Almighty reaches into your life and begins to subtract, it is never without. The human heart clings to the familiar. We hold on tightly to relationships, routines, and environments because they give us comfort. Yet not everything we hold on to is meant to remain with us forever. Some people, no matter how much we love them, are not meant to walk with us into the next chapter of our journey. Some habits, though they feel harmless in the moment, are silently keeping us from the fullness of God's blessing. And some opportunities, as glittering as they may appear, would have drawn us away from our true calling. God, in His infinite wisdom, knows what is good for us, and in His mercy, He takes away what no longer serves His divine purpose for our lives. Imagine a gardener tending to a tree. The gardener sees branches that are overgrown, leaves that are diseased, and fruit that will never mature. To the untrained eye, cutting off branches looks cruel, even destructive. But the gardener knows that pruning is necessary for new life to grow. Likewise, when God prunes your life, He is not destroying you. He is preparing you. He is cutting away what looks alive, but is not fruitful, so that what remains will thrive and bear abundance. You may cry over what has been cut, but one day you will rejoice over what has grown in its place. So many of us fight God's rearrangement. We cling to what He is trying to remove because we believe we cannot live without it. A relationship ends, and we beg for it to return. A job slips through our fingers, and we feel like our life is collapsing. But if we could see what God sees, if we could glimpse the dangers, the distractions, and the delays that He is rescuing us from, we would lift our hands and say, "Thank you, Lord, for loving me enough to take it away." What looks like subtraction is actually multiplication. God subtracts what is harmful so that He can add what is holy, pure, and life-giving. Think about the story of Abraham. God called him to leave his homeland, his father's house, and everything familiar. That was not easy. He had to walk away from comfort into uncertainty. But why? Because God was positioning him for a blessing so great that the whole world would be touched by it. Abraham could not step into his promised destiny while remaining tied to his past. He had to let go in order to receive. The same is true for us. When God begins to remove, He is not taking you backward, He is taking you forward. Sometimes the removal comes in the form of people. Perhaps you've noticed that certain friends no longer call you, or certain companions who once seemed close are now distant. You may wonder why. It could be that God has heard conversations you didn't hear. He has seen intentions that you could not see. And in His mercy, He is shielding you from relationships that would have hindered your growth or pulled you away from His plan. Trust Him in those moments. Don't chase after what God has already released from your life. Other times, God removes inner things, attitudes, habits, or even thought patterns. You may feel restless in your spirit, as though He is stirring you to change. That restlessness is His rearrangement at work. Maybe He is calling you to leave behind bitterness and unforgiveness because those things poison the soul. Maybe He is urging you to break free from procrastination or laziness because they keep you from walking in His calling. These removals are not punishments, they are preparations. He is making room in your heart for peace, for joy, and for clarity of vision. And yes, sometimes God removes opportunities. A door you desperately wanted to open stays shut. An application you sent goes unanswered. A plan you made falls apart. In those moments, it's easy to cry, "Why, Lord? Why not me?" But later, when you look back, you often realize that if that door had opened, you would have walked into disaster. What you thought was the best opportunity was actually a trap. God removes what seems good so He can give you what is truly best. Beloved, do not despise the season of removal. Do not weep endlessly over what God has taken. Trust that His hands are not only hands that take away, but also hands that give, hands that bless, and hands that build. The removal is temporary, but the blessing is eternal. God is not emptying your life. He is clearing it, rearranging it, so that He can fill it with something greater. What you lose now will be nothing compared to the abundance He is preparing to give. So lift up your heart and say, "Lord, if you must take it, I will let it go. I trust that you know better than I do. Rearrange my life as you will, for I believe you are preparing me for a blessing." When God shuts a door in your life, it is never by accident. To us, it may look like rejection. It may feel like failure. But in reality, it is often divine protection. We see only a small part of the picture, one frame of the film, but God sees the entire story from beginning to end. He knows what is waiting behind every door, and in His wisdom, He keeps some doors closed, because what is on the other side would have harmed us, distracted us, or delayed the blessing He is preparing. Think of how many times you prayed for something you thought you needed, only to look back years later and thank God that He never gave it to you. Sometimes we mistake our desires for destiny. We assume that because we want it so badly, it must be good for us. But desire is not always an indicator of what will bless us. God's wisdom far exceeds our understanding. He knows the people who smile in your face but plan harm behind your back. He knows the job that looks secure today but will crumble tomorrow. He knows the path that looks easy now but leads only to regret. When He closes a door, He is sparing you from walking into unnecessary pain. Closed doors test our trust. They expose whether we believe God is truly in control or if we secretly think we know better than He does. The human heart often rebels against God's no. We push, we knock, we force our way, only to find ourselves wounded. But when you learn to rest in God's closed doors, you discover a peace that cannot be shaken. You realize that no man, no circumstance, no power on earth can keep you from what God has destined for you. If He has closed one door, it is only because He is preparing to open another, greater one in His perfect timing. Consider Joseph, betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery. At every turn, it seemed like doors were shutting. His freedom was taken. His reputation was attacked. He was thrown into prison for a crime he never committed. To the natural eye, it looked like his life was ruined. But each closed door was actually protecting him from being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Had Joseph remained in his father's house, he never would have been positioned to save nations from famine. The doors that shut on him were the very things that carried him into the palace. What looked like rejection was preparation for elevation. Closed doors also keep us humble. If every opportunity opened easily, if every prayer were answered instantly, we would begin to rely on our own strength instead of God's power. Closed doors remind us that our lives are not our own. They keep us on our knees, seeking His direction, listening for His voice, and in that posture of surrender, our hearts are shaped, our faith is strengthened, and our character is refined. God is not only preparing the blessing, He is preparing you to carry it. There are moments when the closed door seems cruel. You may have dreamed of that opportunity for years. You may have invested your time, your energy, even your tears into that pursuit. Then suddenly the door slams shut. Your heart aches, your mind questions, and your spirit feels restless. But remember this, what God denies today is often what saves you tomorrow. If He says no, it is only because He has a greater yes waiting for you. The key is not to keep pounding on the closed door. Too many of us exhaust ourselves trying to revive what God has already ended. We replay the rejection in our minds. We analyze the reasons. We cry, if only. But beloved, you cannot force what God has forbidden. Instead, lift your eyes. Stop staring at the door that has been shut and start looking for the one He is about to open. The God who closes is also the God who opens. And when He opens, no man can shut. You may not understand it now, but one day you will look back and see the wisdom of every closed door. You will realize that the job you didn't get made room for the assignment you were born for. The relationship that ended spared you from heartbreak that could have crushed your spirit. The opportunity you missed was a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. Each closed door was God's hand shielding you, guiding you, and leading you closer to His blessing. So take courage. Do not mourn endlessly over what has been denied. Thank God for the doors that shut as much as you thank Him for the ones that open. Trust His timing. Trust His wisdom. Trust His protection. Because when God closes a door, He is not punishing you. He is preparing you. He is rearranging your life to align you with something greater, something safer, something more beautiful than you could have imagined. And when the day comes when the right door swings wide open, you will step through with gratitude in your heart and tears of joy in your eyes, saying, Lord, thank you for every no that protected me until your perfect yes arrived. When God begins to shift you into new environments, it rarely feels comfortable at first. We are creatures of habit. We find safety in the familiar, in the places and patterns we've always known. But growth seldom happens in comfort. God loves us too much to leave us in soil that can no longer nourish us. Sometimes the only way for you to step into your blessing is for Him to lift you out of the ground where you've been planted and place you into a new environment where your roots can go deeper and your fruit can flourish. Think of a plant sitting in a small pot. At first, that pot is perfect. It provides stability, a safe boundary, and a place to grow. But as the plant gets larger, the pot becomes restrictive. Its roots have no room to spread. Its growth becomes stunted, and it cannot produce what it was created to produce. If the gardener does not repot it, the plant will wither, not because it lacked potential, but because it was confined. God, the master gardener of your soul, will not allow you to remain in an environment that is too small for the destiny He placed inside of you. He uproots you, not to harm you, but to enlarge you. When God shifts your environment, you may feel displaced, even disoriented. The friends you once leaned on may no longer be available. The job you relied on may suddenly come to an end. The city you called home may no longer feel like the place you belong. You ask, why is everything changing around me? It is because God is creating space for a new season. He knows that the blessing He has prepared for you cannot survive in the soil of your past. So He gently but firmly moves you into an environment where His plan can fully unfold. Look at the story of Ruth. She could have stayed in Moab, where she had family, history, and familiarity. But God orchestrated a shift in her environment through Naomi's call to return to Bethlehem. That move seemed uncertain, even risky, but it placed Ruth in the very field where she would meet Boaz, the man who would change the course of her life and position her in the lineage of kings. Had Ruth clung to her comfort zone, she would have missed her destiny. Sometimes the new environment God calls you into is the very place where your greatest blessing awaits. New environments also expose us to fresh perspectives. When you remain in the same place too long, you begin to think that what you see is all there is. But God's world is vast, and His ways are higher than ours. He moves you so that your eyes can be open to opportunities, lessons, and people you would never have encountered otherwise. The discomfort you feel in a new environment is actually stretching your capacity. It teaches you to rely less on what is familiar and more on His presence. You learn that your security is not in the soil around you, but in the God who plants you. Of course, transitions are never easy. The enemy will whisper that you've been abandoned, that the move is a mistake, that you should turn back to what you know. But remember, the children of Israel could not enter the promised land while holding on to Egypt. They had to walk through the wilderness, endure the stretching, and trust that God was leading them into a land flowing with milk and honey. The wilderness was uncomfortable, but it was necessary to break the chains of the past and prepare them for the abundance of the future. So it is with you. When God rearranges your life by shifting your environment, do not resist the move. Do not cling to the pot that once sustained you, but now confines you. Instead, lift your eyes and recognize that He is expanding your territory. The people around you may change, but God remains constant. The settings may look unfamiliar, but His presence is your dwelling place. The routines may shift, but His promises never fail. And here is the beauty. Once you settle into the new environment, God has chosen for you, you will see growth you never thought possible. New relationships will form that bring life and encouragement. Fresh opportunities will arise that align perfectly with your gifts. Your spirit will awaken to new levels of faith and vision. What once felt unsettling will begin to feel like home because God Himself established you there. So when God begins to stir your spirit, when He begins to close off the old and push you toward the new, do not fear. He is not removing you to harm you. He is repositioning you to bless you. Trust the gardener's hand. Trust the shift. Trust the soil He has chosen. For in the new environment, your roots will spread, your branches will reach higher, and your life will bear fruit that could never have grown where you once were. When God begins to rearrange your life, the blessing often comes in disguise. It rarely looks like a blessing when it first arrives. In fact, more often than not, it looks like loss. It feels like disappointment, and it sounds like silence from heaven. But what you must understand is that God hides His greatest gifts in unexpected packages. What looks like a setback is often a setup. What appears to be a breakdown is often the very doorway to your breakthrough. God wraps His blessings in ways that require faith to recognize, because faith is what draws you closer to Him in the process. So many people miss what God is doing because they judge the blessing by its outer wrapping. When something painful happens, we assume it cannot possibly be good. When doors close or people leave, we think we are cursed rather than protected. But if you could see beyond the surface, you would realize that God's hand is still at work. He allows the disguise because the blessing is not just about the end result, it is about shaping you along the way. He uses the disguise to refine your faith, to deepen your trust, and to draw you into greater dependence on Him. Think of the story of Joseph again. His blessing was leadership, influence, and the ability to save his family and entire nations from famine. But that blessing did not arrive wearing a crown. It came disguised as betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. If Joseph had judged his life by appearances alone, he would have believed he was cursed. Yet in reality, every hardship was carrying him closer to the throne. What his brothers meant for evil, God meant for good. The blessing was hidden in the disguise of suffering. The same is true for you. The disappointment you face today may be the very thing positioning you for tomorrow's abundance. That lost opportunity may feel devastating, but it could be the disguise that shields you from settling for less than what God intends. That painful ending may feel unbearable, but it could be the disguise that opens your life to a new beginning far more beautiful than you can imagine. God's rearrangements are often hidden blessings, and it takes faith to see them for what they truly are. Another reason blessings come disguised is because God wants to guard them from premature exposure. If the blessing were revealed too soon, you might mishandle it, or others might try to destroy it. By concealing it in circumstances that seem ordinary or even painful, God protects the blessing until the appointed time. You may think you are simply enduring hardship, but in reality you are carrying a treasure that has yet to be unveiled. Like a seed buried in the ground, it looks dead on the surface, but deep within, life is bursting forth, waiting for the right moment to emerge. This is why patience is so critical when God rearranges your life. If you rush the process, if you dig up the seed before it has time to sprout, you will miss the hidden blessing. Instead, you must trust the timing of the one who planted it. Trust that even when it looks like nothing is happening, God is at work beneath the surface. Trust that the disguise will not last forever. In due season, what was hidden will be revealed, and you will understand why it had to be disguised in the first place. Often, the disguise also humbles us. If blessings came openly, with clear labels and shining lights, we would take them for granted. We would boast in our own strength and claim the glory for ourselves. But when blessings arrive through struggle, through tears, through nights of prayer and days of endurance, we learn to recognize that it was God and God alone who sustained us. The disguise ensures that when the blessing is finally revealed, we give Him the honor and not ourselves. So, beloved, do not despise the disguise. Do not curse the loss, the delay, or the disappointment. Look deeper. Ask God to give you eyes of faith to see beyond what is visible. Believe that hidden within the ashes of your pain, a blessing is being formed. Believe that what looks like a storm is carrying the rain that will nourish your harvest. Believe that your tears are watering the ground where joy will soon spring forth. The rearrangement in your life may not look like a blessing right now. It may look messy, confusing, or even unfair. But hold fast to this truth. God is not a God of chaos. He is a God of purpose. Every disguise, every delay, every detour is working together to bring forth the blessing He promised you. And when the disguise is lifted, when the blessing is revealed, you will be able to say, it was worth it all. I would go through it again, because the hidden blessing was far greater than I ever imagined. When God allows detours in your life, it is not because He is punishing you, or because He has forgotten you. It is because He is refining you. You see, blessings are not just about what God gives you. They are about who you become in the process of receiving them. If God were to hand you the blessing instantly, without preparation, it could destroy you instead of uplift you. That is why He takes you the long way around. That is why He sometimes leads you into seasons that feel like wandering, waiting, or even wilderness. It is in those detours that your character is shaped, your faith is strengthened, and your heart is prepared for the weight of the blessing. Think about the Israelites after they left Egypt. God did not take them directly into the promised land, though it could have been a short journey. Instead, He led them through the wilderness for 40 years. Why? Because they were not ready. They had been delivered from Egypt, but Egypt was still in their hearts. They had to be refined, tested, and humbled before they could handle the abundance of the land flowing with milk and honey. The wilderness was the detour that prepared them to live in promise. The same principle applies to us. God allows detours not to delay us, but to develop us. Detours expose what is hidden within us. When life does not go according to plan, when the path is longer and harder than we imagined, what rises up inside us? Do we complain, as the Israelites did, longing for the comforts of the past? Or do we trust that God's hand is guiding us, even when the way feels uncertain? In the detour, God shines a light on the attitudes, the fears, the doubts, and the weaknesses that must be addressed before we can step into greater responsibility. He uses the unexpected turns to show us ourselves, and then to transform us into who we are called to be. Detours also teach us dependence. In seasons of straight paths and quick answers, we can easily forget our need for God. We begin to rely on our own strength and understanding. But in the wilderness, in the detour, we realize how fragile we truly are. Just as the Israelites depended on manna from heaven each morning, so we must learn to lean on God for daily provision daily guidance, and daily strength. This dependence is not a weakness. It is the foundation of true faith. It is in the detour that we learn the lesson. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. And yet detours are not just about stripping things away, they are also about building something new. Every hardship, every waiting season, every unexpected twist is equipping you with qualities you will need in the place of blessing. Patience, resilience, humility, compassion. These are forged in the fires of delay. When you finally arrive at the place God has promised, you will not be the same person who began the journey. You will be wiser, stronger, and more grateful because you have been refined. Take Joseph again as an example. The dream was given to him in his youth, but the fulfillment came only after years of detours. The pit, the house of Potiphar, the prison. Each detour seemed to take him farther from the dream, yet each one was actually preparing him to step into it. In the pit, he learned humility. In Potiphar's house, he learned responsibility. In prison, he learned endurance and reliance on God. By the time Joseph stood before Pharaoh, he was no longer a naive dreamer, but a seasoned leader ready to carry the weight of authority. Without the detours, the dream would have crushed him. The same is true for you. The detour you are on right now is not wasted time. It is holy ground. It is the classroom where God is teaching you lessons that will be vital for your destiny. You may not understand why the road is so long, but one day you will look back and see that every twist, every turn, every delay was necessary. The blessing would not have been complete without the refining. So do not despise the detour. Do not rush it or curse it. Embrace it as part of God's divine rearrangement. Tell yourself, this is not the end. This is preparation. Hold on to the promise, even when the path seems to contradict it. He is not withholding the blessing. He is shaping you so that when the blessing comes, you will be able to carry it with strength, with gratitude, and with humility. Remember this? The blessing is not just about reaching the destination. It is about becoming the person who can live in that destination without losing your soul. That is why the detour is necessary. It may be longer, it may be harder, but it is always worth it. And when you finally arrive, you will not only rejoice in the blessing, you will rejoice in the journey that prepared you for it. When God begins to rearrange your life, He is not only preparing you for blessing, He is aligning you with purpose. You see, the greatest gift you can receive from God is not simply material abundance, answered prayers, or earthly success. Those are wonderful, but they are temporary. The true blessing is to be aligned with the reason God created you, to walk in His divine purpose for your life. That is why He rearranges your steps. That is why He shifts circumstances, closes doors, and opens new ones. He is ensuring that your life is moving in harmony with His will. There are many people who appear blessed on the outside. They have wealth, recognition, or comfort. But if their lives are not aligned with God's purpose, there will always be a void within. True fulfillment comes only when you are walking in what you were designed to do. You were created for more than survival. You were created for more than chasing after the desires of the flesh. You were created for destiny, for impact, for divine purpose. And that is why God will not allow you to remain in places, relationships, or habits that pull you away from that purpose. His rearrangement is His way of bringing you back into alignment. Think of Jonah. God gave him a clear assignment to go to Nineveh and proclaim His word. But Jonah tried to run in the opposite direction. He boarded a ship headed elsewhere, seeking his own path. Yet God in his mercy rearranged Jonah's journey. Through the storm, through the belly of the great fish, God redirected him back to where he was meant to be. It was uncomfortable, even terrifying, but it was necessary to bring Jonah into alignment with his divine assignment. The same happens in our lives. When we drift, when we resist his will, God uses circumstances, delays, and even hardships to push us back onto the path of purpose. Alignment with purpose often requires letting go of things that distract you. Sometimes it means releasing ambitions that may look good but are not God's best. Other times it means surrendering relationships that pull your focus away from him. It could even mean changing your lifestyle, your priorities, or your daily routines. Purpose demands focus. You cannot chase everything at once and still walk in God's calling. So he rearranges, stripping away what competes with his plan, so that you can give your whole heart to the mission he designed for you. And purpose is never small. Even when it looks ordinary in the eyes of men, it carries eternal weight. A mother raising her children in the fear of the Lord may never receive applause from the world, but in heaven her purpose is profound. A worker serving with integrity may seem unnoticed, but in God's eyes that life is a testimony. Purpose is not about status. It is about obedience. When God aligns you with his purpose, even the smallest actions ripple into eternity. This is why you may feel restless when you are out of alignment. You may have everything you thought you wanted, but something feels missing. That emptiness is the soul's reminder that only God's purpose can satisfy. He will stir you, he will unsettle you, until you yield and allow him to realign your steps. And when you do, you will find peace, even if the road is challenging, because you will know that you are exactly where God wants you to be. Alignment with purpose also attracts provision. When you are walking in God's will, resources flow to meet the need. Doors open that you could not have forced open on your own. People come into your life who are assigned to help you. Favor surrounds you, not because you chased it, but because you are in the place where God's blessing naturally flows. The provision follows the purpose. That is why alignment is so critical. Beloved, understand this. God is not rearranging your life to frustrate you. He is not moving things around at random. He is carefully aligning each piece, each step, each relationship to ensure that you are positioned exactly where you need to be to fulfill his will. Sometimes it feels like your life is being dismantled, but in truth, it is being rebuilt according to the blueprint of heaven. So when you feel the shift, when God begins to move you out of one place and into another, don't fight it. Say, Lord, not my will, but yours be done. Align me with your purpose, because the greatest blessing you can ever receive is to know that your life, your time, and your gifts are being used exactly as God intended. That is where joy is found. That is where peace flows. That is where life becomes more than survival. It becomes significant, eternal, and powerful. And once your life is aligned with God's purpose, you will discover that everything else falls into place. What you once chased will begin to chase you. What you once worried about will be added to you. What you once feared will no longer hold power over you. Because when you are aligned with purpose, you are aligned with blessing, and no force on earth can stop what God has ordained. When God rearranges your life, the final arrangement is always better than the first. You may not see it while you are in the middle of the shaking, when everything familiar is being stripped away. You may look around and think that all is lost, that life will never be as good again, that the best days are behind you. But with God, the best is always yet to come. His pattern throughout Scripture and throughout history is to take what seems broken, restore it, and replace it with something greater. The latter house is always more glorious than the former. What he takes away, he replaces with something that surpasses it. The enemy would have you believe that loss is final, that when people walk away, when doors close, when seasons end, you are left with nothing. But God never leaves his children empty. If he allows something to be removed, it is only because he has something greater in store. What looks like decrease is often a divine setup for increase. What feels like the end is really the beginning of a new chapter, written with blessings you could not have imagined. Consider Job. He lost everything: his wealth, his children, his health. His friends accused him. His wife urged him to give up, and his world fell apart. Yet, when the testing was over, God restored to Job twice as much as he had before. The pain was real, the loss was real, but the restoration was even greater. The final arrangement of Job's life was far better than the first. This is how God works. He never allows suffering without weaving blessing into it. He never allows subtraction without planning multiplication. The final arrangement is not only better in quantity, but also in quality. When God restores, he doesn't just replace what was lost. He refines it, improves it, and transforms it into something richer. Think about relationships. Perhaps someone left your life and it felt devastating. But later, God brought people into your path who truly supported, uplifted, and valued you. What you lost was painful, but what you gained was far more meaningful. Or think about opportunities. You may have been denied one job, only to later step into a position that was perfectly aligned with your gifts and purpose. God's replacement is always better than what was removed. The final arrangement is also better because you are better. You do not go through seasons of loss and rearrangement unchanged. You come out wiser, stronger, more compassionate, and more grateful. The blessing at the end is not only in what you receive, but in who you become. Trials refine the soul like fire refines gold. When you emerge from the furnace of testing, you shine with a faith and resilience that you did not have before. The final arrangement carries greater glory because you are now ready to handle it. And let us not forget that God delights in doing more than we ask or think. His vision for your life is higher than your own. You may be mourning over what was taken, not realizing that God is preparing to give you something so much greater. Sometimes we dream too small, we settle for too little, while God is planning something far grander. That is why the rearrangement hurts, because we are holding on to something small while he is trying to place something greater in our hands. The pain of letting go is real, But so is the joy of receiving the new. The promise that the final arrangement is better should give you hope when you feel like giving up. It should remind you that nothing you have lost in God is truly gone. He can restore the years that the locusts have eaten. He can bring beauty from ashes. He can turn mourning into dancing. He can take the very thing the enemy meant for evil and use it for good. And when he does, the blessing that follows will be greater than the pain that preceded it. So, beloved, take heart. Do not despise the process of rearrangement. Do not cling so tightly to what was that you miss what will be. Trust the hand of God. Trust that his plan is not to harm you, but to prosper you, to give you a future and a hope. Trust that even when the pieces of your life look scattered, he is fitting them together into a masterpiece. The ending he is writing for you will always outshine the beginning. One day, you will look back and say, "Now I understand. The pain was necessary. The loss was preparation. The waiting was part of the journey. And the final arrangement is more beautiful than I could have ever dreamed. For that is the nature of our God. He saves the best for last." My dear friend, do not despair when life feels like a puzzle scattered across the table. The master is putting the pieces together. The rearrangement may look chaotic now, but soon you will see the full picture, a picture of blessing, favor, and divine purpose. Lift your eyes, trust his hand, and know that he is rearranging your life for a blessing beyond measure.